Johnson, they had other European athletes taking a fall, but never the U.S. with a name took a fall. So when they made a mistake, they thought that, hey, we can run with this guy. Because I tell you, it was tough to stay strong enough to get to this point. Because any infraction, you know, ESPN would have took a chance on this. Yes, would have took a chance on this. If I would have acted out on that anger, or acted out on that why me, and that pity feeling, then that, I'm a Gemini. You know, I can switch it. I didn't want that one. I ain't like that guy. So I gotta stay here and take the pain. And, you know, but it made me a better man. I mean, I'm older, but it made me a more wiser, because I realized setting the world record, you know, was happy. And going through the accusation was sad times. So you have to balance that out. And I'm always trying to balance out. Even though I was the world record holder, I try to balance it out. And being falsely accused in front of the world, I still try to balance that out. Even though it's very challenging. But you see my daughter and my son, they really, you know, when you got that type of love, it really helps.
Well, that's what I also want to say is like, I think Butch was an easy target. And I say that because even though he had rose to the top of his profession, he was the world's fastest man, he still wasn't a household name across the country. He wasn't a Carl Lewis, you know. So it was, so you know, but he was right there on the cusp of notoriety. I mean, he had just signed a $1 million Nike deal, you know, his second Nike deal. So he had just shot a Super Bowl commercial that was slated to come out with that next Super Bowl, which was shelved because of the steroid allegations. So it was like he was right there about to be that next remarkable athlete along with the Jordan and the Tiger Woods, but he just didn't have that name. So it was just, I think it was easier for them to kind of just, choose him, you know, and basically because, you know, no one knew him to a certain extent, unless you're in the track and field. And I don't know, I want to say this is interesting because I was in DC a couple weeks ago and I was sitting outside my hotel and this guy was sitting out there and we just started talking. He's like, I was like, introduce ourselves. This is his first time ever, and he was like a 60-year-old man. He was from London, the London area. He had never been to the United States before. So we were talking, and he said, what do you do? I said, well, I'm a filmmaker. And so I told him about False Positive, and he was like, Butch Reynolds? I know Butch Reynolds. And the first thing he said to me was, he got caught up with the drugs, didn't he? But I just let you know, Butch is a household name in Europe. He just wasn't a household name here.
There's an Arabic proverb that says, live as brothers, do business as strangers. You all have been together for years, but when you're making this film and you have to tell your dear friend, nah man, we're gonna show this, or we're gonna have to put you in this light, or we're gonna talk to this person. What was that like? The business of the film versus the friendship that you shared?
For me, the only part of the documentary that I was like, why you had me so long? When I was driving my car and I was thinking about, maybe, is this time for me to run off this cliff or not? It wasn't that long of a ride. When I was thinking about the stuff out that, I was like, yeah, bitch, come on, give me a break. But no, dealing with this was easy for this part, the hardest part when I was talking about my mom. That's when I broke down. I had to get about 30 minutes.
Yeah, that was because we shot Butch over a 3-day period in Akron, and any good director, you're gonna poke and you're gonna pry, because you're trying to get some emotion out of the subject. Those are the best films. They evoke that emotion, and just man, I'm getting just to see him break down like that. He needed a moment. I needed a moment. I had to get up and correct myself too. But when that happened, I was like, yeah. we got something special.
There's something special that you've captured. What do you hope an audience takes from it? What do you want them at the end of the day to know about Butch?
Fair, honest, very open, willing to help, and they still didn't get what I think what they wanted. They didn't get rid of me. I'm still here.
In the documentary, you talk about going back to school. You mentioned Frederick Douglass, Nelson Mandela. There's a Frederick Douglass quote that says, "I prayed for 20 years and got no answers until I prayed with my feet." And it's the idea of action, right? What was you talk about your family, but the action where you're like, all right, Butch, enough is enough. Like, I got this will drown me if I don't do and start running, do what God gave you. What was that moment like for you to live it in real time?
I think that I believe in going through this process, you learn a lot. You teach yourself a lot. And what I learned was grief. And the last my mind off of Butch, and keep my mind off of on someone else. And I knew they were reciprocated with the love was a slam dunk for me.
Ismail, you've created something that's enduring, and it's a story about your friend. What's next for you? Because Butch Part 2, like you can't, what, as a filmmaker now, right? As you met this man on the street from London, and you say I'm a filmmaker. You've done this. What's the next step for you?
Man, I mean, I'm just looking to tell more provocative stories. I just think that when I look at the documentary landscape right now, it's I just feel like the only thing that really bothers me right now is so much focus on celebrity right now. And I think the storytelling is suffering because of that. It's like, there's so many good stories out there to tell. I think Butch has a great scripted narrative feature film in the making. Because we left so much. We left so much on the editing floor. So many. We only had 100 minutes. You know what I'm saying? So, but there were so many moments of his story that can be so cinematic. In a scripted feature. Like for instance, like it's a lot. One of the things I couldn't capture in the film is that when an athlete is accused of taking steroids, you see it, so basically they break the urine up in two samples. They have an A sample and a B sample. The A sample tests potentiality, but for some reason, Butch's test got leaked to the public. So Butch was telling me, he was like, yeah, man, I was at the New York City Marathon, and I was just coming downstairs, and he said he got off the elevator, and paparazzi just hit him like, Butch, did you know you tested positive? He said the cameras was flashing in his face, and he said he just hit the button and went right back upstairs and like, yo, what just happened? Can't you see that in the movie? Can't you see that moment in the movie? That would be so dope. It's like, I would love to direct, my first narrative feature film, and I would love to do it around Butch's story, so.
Great story. Story that needs to be told.
I know we're running short on time, and so I have a couple of questions left. The first, I'll start with you, Ismail, and then I'll end with you, Butch. To you, Ismail, there are first-time directors and would-be filmmakers that are not only in the audience, but have been coming to the festival, and to have a space like the African American Film Festival here at Martha's Vineyard is wonderful. Can you maybe talk about that process of a first-time filmmaker getting it to ESPN and 30 for 30, working with a large entity, that's Disney, right? This enormous entity, and speak about what that experience was like for people in the audience who might be interested in following in your shoes that would be first-time film directors.
Well, I mean, the first thing is always believe in yourself. That's number one. Great stories help. Number two, and relationships help. Because I look at this whole process of finishing this film, and I tell people that it was relational. People look at Bradford, and his accomplishments, but I remember Bradford when he was a little scrawny kid from Louisville, Kentucky, who just hit the campus of Howard University, and I watched him grow from, incoming freshman into one of the prominent cinematographers of the business. So it's like, I would say just believe in yourself. People always, when people see my film, man, this is your first now. I'm like, yes, it's my first one. What film school would you go to? I said, YouTube University. You know what I'm saying? That's where I spent countless nights and early mornings at my dining room table on YouTube, learning my craft and asking questions, and working closely with people like John Hott, and just really learning my craft, and so these relationships are so important, and the people over at ESPN was so engaging, and so helpful throughout the process, and so I would just tell everybody, let's just believe it in yourself, and nowadays, you have so much information at your fingertips, so it's really no excuse for you not to be the best at what you want to do. It really just comes down to how bad you really want it.
Butch, this last question is for you. The Olympics are going on right now. We hear, names like Sha'Carri, and you hear, someone just won the 400, the world's fastest man on the 100 and the 200. What's your relationship now with track? Can you watch it on TV and not feel a way? Can you, in the closing parts of the film, you're on the track, and you still look like you're in fantastic shape. We might have to talk off stage. What your regimen is. I need to, But can you still, can you go onto the track now? Can you watch it and not have emotions come up? Where are you with that right now?
I'm in a real good place this year at these Olympics. This is the first Olympics I was in this good place with that Olympics. Maybe because of the documentary or time itself. But in the beginning, I wasn't too enthused about watching the Olympics. Now my daughter, she went to college. Her first year, she wanted to run track. So she was on the track team at Case Western Reserve University. And then the second year she came to me and she said, Dad, I think I want to study more of the law instead of running. I was like, thank God. So I try not to tell or demean people's dreams for going to the Olympics, because that was my dream. And I, through experience, I realize now that, God got his hands on us.
Yes, he does.
So if it's meant for you to do that process, it's not for me to control it, to give you the opportunity to do it. So I train, kids all day in track and field, football, basketball, whatever it is. I'm a trainer, and I'm also helping with after school programs, and I do work with kids that way too.
First-time director of the ESPN documentary, The 30 for 30, False Positive, and gold medal winner, world record holder. Thank you for joining us on stage at the Marcus Vineyards.